Good morning, mathematicians. Welcome to our math lesson. Today is Wednesday, April 15th, 2020. Our math lesson will be on non-standard units of length. Our learning objective is, I can express the length of an object as a whole number of length units. I understand that the length measurement of an object is the number of same size length units with no gaps or overlaps. So let's get started. Our warm-up, you have 60 seconds to solve the problem, but not yet. Let me go ahead and read it. So it says, write a number sentence to solve. Vanya baked 23 cookies with her mom. They shared 10 cookies with their neighbors. How many cookies does Vanya have left? Ready? 30 seconds on the clock. Go. Thinking. 10 seconds left. All right, let's check our work. Vanya baked 23 cookies with her mom. They shared 10 cookies with their neighbors. How many cookies does Vanya have left? I was thinking it's a takeaway problem because she is giving some to her neighbor. And we see that it's 23 cookies that she had minus the 10 that she shared with her neighbor. That means that she has how many cookies left? 13. Nice job. So let's get started. How can we use cubes to measure objects? Or not just cubes, how can I use paper clips, coins, beans? How can I use non-standard units of measurement to measure objects? These are connection cubes. They can be stacked onto other cubes and their sides are the same length. This is very important when we're using non-standard units. We have to make sure that they're about the same length. So if I'm using paper clips, I have to make sure that the paper clips that I'm using, they all have the same length, right? Because what happens if one's smaller than the other one, then my measurements are not going to be precise. I want you to go ahead and look at this chart. It says, measure each animal using connecting cubes. Write the approximate length in the table. So I want you to see what is it that we're going to do. We're going to use this cube right here. Because we're using the cube to measure objects, we're going to call the cube our unit of measurement. That one right there. Okay? So look at the cube and look at the snail. About how many cubes do you guys think I'm going to need to measure this length of the snail? Remember, the length is the longest part. Thumbs up if you have an estimate, if you have an idea of how many we're going to need. Okay, let's go ahead and check. 1, 2. Should I stop there or should I put one more? I should add one more. So, what is the length of the snail? The length of the snail is 3 cubes. The length of the snail is 3 cubes. Now let's look at the centipede. Do you guys think it's going to measure more or less than the snail? More, right? It's longer than the snail. Look at it carefully. How many cubes do you think I'm going to need to measure the centipede? Let's check. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the length of the centipede is 5 cubes. Now look at the snake. It's longer or shorter than the centipede? Longer. So about how many cubes do you guys think I'm going to need for the length of the snake? Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the length of the snake is 7 cubes. It's very important that we always mention the unit that we're using, whether it be standard or non-standard. In this case, we're learning about non-standard, so I have to make sure I tell you what unit I'm using. So since I'm using cubes, I would say the length of the spider. So since I'm using cubes, I would say the length of the snake is 7 cubes. If I were using paper clips to measure it, I would say the length of the snake is about 2 paper clips, right? So you have to make sure you always say what unit you're using. Let's practice. Okay, you're going to find a non-standard unit that you will use for this lesson. It can be pennies, beans, paper clips, cereals, Legos, rice, anything that you have that you can use to measure the length of objects. So I do want to remind you that if you decide to use pennies, all of your objects should be measured using pennies. See, if I use a quarter and a penny to measure my object, that's not going to work because the length of the quarter is more than the penny. So all of my units have to be the same. So if you're using coins, make sure you're using either all pennies, all quarters, or all dimes. If you're using beans, right, then that's all you're using, beans. You're using paper clips, and that's all you're using, paper clips. Right, so let's get started. It says, Emmanuel has a pencil that is about 4 cubes long. Robin has a pair of scissors that is about 6 cubes long. Draw the items described. So let's think about the clues that they're giving us. So we know it's about Emmanuel and Robin. We know that Emmanuel has a pencil and Robin has a pair of scissors. What do we know about Emmanuel's pencil? It's about 4 cubes long. What do we know about Robin's pair of scissors? It's about 6 cubes long. So when you draw the items in your paper, I want you to think, which item is shorter? Which one is longer? And what would you do first? Okay, so pause the video and do a quick sketch of the objects. Remember, you have to be able to show which one's the longest and which one's the shortest. When you're ready, press play and continue watching the video. All right. So like I mentioned earlier, in this lesson, we're learning that you can measure to find the length of an object. Each cube or paper clip is 1 unit. So if you look at the picture of the horse and the picture of the sheep, right, they measured those 2 objects. And let's look at the helpful hint before we go on. It says you can measure objects using cubes, paper clips, or pennies, or beans, or Legos, any other non-standard unit. So we look at the horse. They measured it and they said that it's about 3 cubes long. The sheep is about 2 cubes long. We could also measure it with our non-standard unit. If I use a paper clip to measure it, do you guys think it's going to be 3 paper clips as well? No, right? It will change because the paper clip is longer. So that's the thing with non-standard unit. Depend on the unit that we decide to use, we're either going to need more or less. So for example, on the horse, they used cubes and they said the length is 3 cubes. If I use the bean, do you think I would need more beans or less beans than the cubes? Probably more. Remember I told you that you were going to need a non-standard unit? Okay, do you have it? Okay. Let's practice. Remember I asked you to find a non-standard unit? You're going to need it now, all right? And what are you going to do with it? You're going to use your non-standard unit to measure the items on the screen. So, let's say I'm using dimes. Okay, you will get your dime and you would measure it. How many do you guys think you're going to need? I'm going to continue using cubes so that I could show you what I did. Okay, so let's start with the paintbrush. I'm going to put my first one. Okay, now when I put the second cube and when you put your second unit, you have to make sure that they're side by side and touching. Not in front of each other, but just touching just like that. Okay? And I have to make sure that they're touching. I cannot have gaps either because then we're not measuring correctly. Have to be touching. And they're not overlapping and they don't have gaps. They're just like that. Okay? So go ahead and measure it. Okay, I'm going to share what I found. I found that the paintbrush is 1, 2, 3, 4. It is about 4 cubes long. How long was it using your non-standard unit? So if you have more, that means that your standard unit is probably smaller than mine. If you have less, that's maybe because you use a standard unit that is longer, right? So let's look at the pencil. Go ahead and measure it with your non-standard unit. Okay, I'm going to show you what I found. I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need about 5 cubes. So the length of the pencil is 5 cubes. What was the length of the pencil with your non-standard unit? And last, I see the crayon. Go ahead and measure it using your non-standard unit. Okay, mine is 1, 2. The length of the crayon is about 2 cubes long. What was the length with your non-standard unit? Awesome job. I want you to look at this pencil and I want you to think about how many cubes long is the pencil. Think about the ones I've been using. Would you say it's 2 cubes, 5 cubes, 10 cubes? Right, so it's about 5 cubes long. All right, your turn. You're going to look for 10 items around your house that you're going to measure using your non-standard unit, whether it be cereal, pencils, beans, Legos, whatever you decided, pennies, dimes. But you're going to measure all of your items using whatever standard unit you selected. Then you're going to make a table. Your table is going to have on one side the item, on the other side its measurement of length. Now when you write them in the table, I want you to do it from shortest to longest. So in the example, I have a pencil, a book, a spoon, and a broom. So the pencil was 3 pennies long, the book was 6 pennies long, the spoon was 9 pennies long. The pencil goes first because it's the shortest of all my items. Its length was only 3 pennies. My second item would be the book because the length of the book was 6 pennies. Then my spoon would be next because the length of it was 9 pennies. Notice how I'm going from shortest to longest. I want you to do the same, all right? Okay, mathematicians, we are done with our math lesson. I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.